Okay, mothers are either gonna love me or hate me after this one, but I'm just sharing info. Welcome back to the Mystic Rebels podcast. My name is Ashley. I am the divine feminine representation of Mystic Rebels and Mystic Circle. I teach herbalism, I teach alchemy, I teach magic, I teach tarot, and so much more. And I'm so blessed to be here with you to talk about the lies we hear in motherhood. And this podcast is simply meant with intention to give support and guidance to anyone who is either going through their motherhood journey or about to experience motherhood for the first time or second time or third time. And I took my deck and pulled some cards right before starting this podcast and asking for the right way to address this, because there's some sensitive topics that I'm going to talk about. And I don't want anyone to feel like I'm telling you what to do. This is just meant to be other information, maybe things that are going to be illuminated for you so that you can make a more informed decision. Because as a mother, I think the biggest part of our job is to learn discernment and to learn how to be that mama bear for our child so that they can learn to be that mama bear one day to themselves or to others or to their friends. And that's a vibe that can really change this world if people have sovereignty over their own sense of power and well-being and don't expect anyone else to make that decision for them. And if you do expect other people to make those decisions for you, motherhood can be very, very hard. So the first lie that I want to discuss with you guys, because I remember when I was pregnant with my first, it was during the pandemic, and what I learned was that pregnancy is unless you're a student like me for most of your life, you will never study more about anything than when you're pregnant because you want to know everything and anything you can find. And unfortunately, there's a lot of resources online and in the doctor's office and with other people of authority that can really mislead you and take you down a path that might feel inauthentic to you as a mother. And there were many moments while I was pregnant where I was studying things and I would tell Logan about them. I'm like, did you know this statistic? And he is like, that's a bunch, because he had a daughter already. Even though he hadn't been pregnant and hadn't birthed her, he had the experience of raising a child. And he was like, that's a bunch of, baby, no, we're going to do this and we'll try this. And, I'll be there to help you. And it was really comforting to have a partner who had already been through, especially the newborn phase, because one of the things that really scared me was that people talked about how traumatic the newborn phase was. And I'll get into that in a minute. But the first lie I really want to talk about is the myth that hospital birth equals a safe birth. And I want to preface this with, if you truly believe that the only place that you can have a healthy or safe birth is in a hospital setting, then just disregard what I'm about to say. That's your choice, mama. This is your child, and you have sovereignty over the decisions you make in honor of them. But I would say that we are so misinformed about birth, and I had so many aha moments while pregnant with my first. Because it was during the pandemic, I opted for a home birth because I called an OBGYN's office in Sonoma, where we were from at the time, where we were living. And the first question that really alarmed me, which was over the phone before they'd met me in person, and they asked if I had considered a C-section. And I was like, no. I mean, I was born via C-section, and so was my sister, because my mother had some issues. And again, this is before I learned what that issue was really a lie from the medical system. And the pediatrician, the OBGYN was like, oh, so you'll definitely need a C-section. If it runs in your family, you'll most likely need it as well. And I was just like, it didn't feel right. it didn't feel right at all. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. And I hadn't gotten to that point in my life where I didn't care what other people thought about me in terms of standing in my ground and trusting my intuition. And it's really taken me until my second child to really get to that point. But I just said, okay, thank you so much. But and then I started interviewing midwives and realizing that a home birth is incredibly safe, and actually in some cases can be even safer if you don't have what they would consider serious pre-existing conditions. If you have an easier pregnancy, and also if you're in tune with the energetic flow of your body. So if you have sovereignty over your cycles, if you work with herbs, if you understand that you were born to birth your baby naturally, we were made perfect. If you embrace that, then a hospital birth might be the worst thing for you. Because I will tell you from my own personal experience in the postpartum, right after I had my baby, my last baby, I ended up in the hospital, and it was so awful the way they treat women who have just had babies. And I've heard so many horror stories from clients of mine, from friends of mine, from women I just meet in person out and about who have kids. And whenever I sense that someone's really holding burdens, and especially in motherhood, I just ask them questions. How you doing, mama? I'll just say that. How are you doing, mama? And some women will just be dying to tell you, well, I mean, I'm great considering that, the birth was terrible and we had to have an emergency C-section and all this. And it's definitely not my place to be like, most likely that emergency C-section was based on an emergency that they caused with the over-medicalized system of birth. That's not my point. That's not my point in asking them these questions. It's to see how they're navigating the waters of motherhood despite those experiences. And for many of us, that postpartum phase can be way harder if you had a insensitive, medicalized birth. And I'm also not saying that free birth is, any extreme, I think is not a smart choice. Unless you're in that extreme, unless your mind goes to the extreme of, oh, I don't need anyone around, I know what I'm doing, I have complete confidence, and I have absolutely no fear in place. That's your choice, mama. I personally would never do a free birth. I would have a midwife that I truly trusted, and thankfully I've found mine. She saved my life with this last baby. And I would just have her in the other room. Like it was during my birth. She came in, she asked me a few questions. I asked her to check where I was, and that's a choice. There are some people who will demonize midwives because they forcibly check you, or they're just constantly on you and overbearing. And that is something that can be mitigated, especially if you don't want somebody to be like an overbearing mother. You need to interview these people. And that was difficult for me because at the time, again, I wasn't that, nope, it's not right for me. Let's move on. When it came to my child, I had to learn to be that way. And we interviewed another midwife first for our first baby. And it was a concern of mine. I did not want my baby born into a room with masks. And I wanted a midwife who understood the miracle of birth and was going to be a champion for me because I just lost my mother. And there was a little bit of an intensity in this first woman that we met with. She came to our house and she asked me if I exercised. And I said, I've just been a little stressed since my mom died, and I'm really happy that I'm pregnant. So I've just been taking it easy. We go for walks every day. I do some yoga, but nothing intense. And mind you, I had spent the last 4 or 5 years, exercising every day. So I was in amazing shape. I mean, my ass was just like, bam. That's how I got pregnant. And she immediately was like, wait, hold on. No, if I'm going to be your midwife, we need to make sure that you're exercising every day. You need to be sweating every day. I need you to work out for at least 30 minutes, Zumba, dance. You need to be moving and ferociously. And I was just like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. And so I didn't say it in the space, but I should have. I should have said, that doesn't feel right to me. And because we have that right as a mother. And that's the main thing that I want to imbue whoever is watching this. If you're watching this and you're pregnant, or if you're watching this and you have children, or you're thinking about having children, I want to imbue you with the right that you can say what feels right to you. That's what matters. And a big part of this journey was being like, no, I'm going to say no because that doesn't feel right. And Logan was like, okay. You need to make sure that you have a partner too that is aware that you have that right. And you can also communicate with your partner. I've had many friends who wanted a home birth, but their partner was scared. And in the beginning, Logan was scared. But throughout the entire journey, thankfully, he's a very logical person and knows that I'm an intelligent person. And I would never intentionally put myself or my child in danger. And so as I was learning about the miraculous human body through pregnancy and birth, I was like, oh, and this happens, and then this happens. And once we're in this phase, it's go time, baby. And he was like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that, like all throughout the pregnancy. And he was just very available to just absorb information and take it in. And he would talk to our midwife during our meetings with her, ask her questions, because we also need to imbue dad with that power to say no. But also make sure it's not coming from a place of fear. We never want to say no out of fear, unless it's fully realized and it's like, no, that's a cliff. We can't go that way. That's different. But when it's a false fear and it's based on the lies that society tells us, we need to deconstruct it. And sometimes that is the job of the mother, to educate and to nurture a new sense of understanding. So a home birth can be incredibly safe. What happened with my last home birth was an anomaly. My midwife went in front of the medical board because they were like, what the hell happened? And she gave them everything, all my paperwork, all my blood work, everything. And I don't actually think that you really need blood work during pregnancy, but I did it because it was just something that I preferred, having that information, especially being a holistic practitioner myself. And understanding, where my vitamins are at and if I'm depleted and what's necessary, because what the baby doesn't get from you in the womb, they suck it from your bones. So if you don't eat it, if you don't take care of your body while pregnant, it will get drained from you, because baby's going to get what baby needs most of the time, unless you don't have those reserves. So that's why it was important to me. And that's why I made that choice. But it was really interesting to find a midwife that was so sweet and so kind. And then during birth was just such a patient birth holder. And then I wasn't alive when she was bringing me back to life. But Logan said that she was on it. She was not giving up. She was bringing me back. And it's because of her. And then my husband started talking to me and telling me to come back. And that's when I came back, and I would hire her over and over and over again. And one of our members in Circle, our school, was like, get ready for number 3. I think you're going to have a third baby. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Only God knows. Only Spirit knows. So when it comes to safe birth, educate yourself. Educate yourself. There are so many wonderful books. There are so many wonderful resources from holistic practitioners. And, unfortunately, in the medical system, OBGYNs are not taught the miraculous nature of birth and how a woman will naturally give birth, and how pain is a normal expression of birth, and it doesn't have to be demonized. Oh, you had a painful birth? Well, I had an orgasmic birth. I was like, great, that's great for you. Mine was excruciating, but I did it. I did it without pain medication. And then there are women who are like, screw it, I'm not ready for that. I want the shot, blah, blah, blah. But you need to know what those steps, what those, what are they called? to interrupt birth is what those are. Oh my God. Mom brain. Interventions. There we go. You need to know what those interventions are and the implication that they have on not only the health of your body, but the health of your baby. Because Pitocin can actually cause rupture. And they don't tell you that happens more often than not. And it's a traumatic thing for a woman to think that she's doing the best thing for her baby and for herself, and then the outcome is horrific. But it's because that the medical system just knows protocols. And that's the problem. You're not an energetic spiritual being. You're a woman who needs to have her baby in 12 hours or less. Otherwise, if you're not progressing, why are you here? And because it's money. It's a industry run by money. You're not a person. And there are certain people who are treated even more poorly than others based on their economic status, their race, their intelligence. It's really unfortunate that we don't take women's hands while they're pregnant and say, this can be the most magical, empowering experience of your life if you honor that this baby chose you and you're going to get through this in partnership with your baby and whoever helped you make this baby, if that's your choice. But that's something that I came to realize after reading a lot of different books. I was like, wait a second, this doesn't have to be so hard. This can be amazing. And it should be in an environment where you feel safe. That's all I'm going to say on that. So hospital birth does not equal safe birth. Definitely not. Safe birth equals what's safe for you. Let's go with that. Postpartum body and health. The idea that your body will bounce back. I remember before I ever got pregnant, I was thinking, okay, before I would be pregnant or if I get pregnant again, I would make sure that my body was tight and then I could get pregnant. And, and the funny thing is, after having my first baby, I realized I don't want to bounce back. My body is forever changed. The composition of my body, the way I feel about my body. And it was hard for me at first because after giving birth, after my first, I had such a beautiful home birth and nobody pushed on my womb postpartum, forcing a bunch of fluid out, which, caused inflammation and trauma to the tissues, which made it much harder for my stomach to go back down. Yeah, that's what they do in the hospital. Even if you say, ow, please don't. I'm sorry, I have to. It's protocol. Yeah, it's another half hour, every hour on the hour. And I'm just like, go away. Get out of my room. But I was too drugged up to fight for myself. And that's the problem with the system. But we've moved on from there, Ashley. Have we? But with my first baby, I did, with breastfeeding, I did lose weight rather quickly. But what they don't tell you is it shouldn't be about the weight. It should be about your strength and your resilience and replenishing your nutrients. Because birth really, it softens you. Pregnancy and birth, it softens you. Everything gets very loosey-goosey so that you can be in the exact position and situation that you need to be in order to birth your baby perfectly. And unfortunately, what they don't tell you is postpartum, those muscles, those tissues stay loosey-goosey for a while. So I threw out my back multiple times, and it also came from a place of feeling unsure, insecure. I was constantly worried about whether or not I was able to be the mother that she needed based on all the lies that I read and fixated on. There were a lot of people who had, I watched these videos on YouTube of different mothers, one in particular, which was great, but there was a lot of medicalized conditioning on some of the information, and it got into my head and made me think that was what was correct. And until I experienced the postpartum phase and or the fourth trimester, and then also the newborn phase, I was like, what? That was a bunch of BS. Your body's not going to bounce back because your body is better than it ever has been, even if you're weak, even if you feel overweight, even if you're raw and you had to have a C-section. And your body is amazing. You created life and you brought that baby into this world, whether it was through the womb or through a C-section. It doesn't matter. You did your job. That baby is earthside. Well done. Now, instead of thinking, when's my body going to bounce back? Softening is our job in the postpartum phase. We have to soften our view towards ourselves and our hearts. We need to start stretching and getting mobility back in our hips, but being really gentle. I injured myself by trying to get back in the gym, even after 6 weeks. My pelvic floor was also a hot mess, and it wasn't until I went and saw a pelvic floor specialist that changed. I didn't realize in the first session that she was going to be putting her fingers inside me, and I was like, oh wow, you're a really sweet person, but okay. And then after that, sex was no longer painful, which was great. However, I was expecting that the problem was that I was too loose, because we're told when we give birth that everything's just loose and that's why you're never going to be tight again and all this stuff and your vagina's ruined. And that's a lie. That's a total lie. Another lie. I was actually too tight. What? I was like, wait, what? I'm too tight? And that spoke to my tension, my fear, my lower back issues, and so many other cascade emotional imbalances that I was experiencing in early motherhood. And it was just a simple, I think I saw her about 4 times, and I learned exercises to take care of it. But it's really easy to let yourself go in that phase. And by let yourself go, I don't mean eat junk food and, watch TV all the time. What I mean is to not take care of yourself like you would your baby. And learning to mother yourself in that postpartum phase and in motherhood is so imperative. It is a necessity, because we very soon start having a baby or a child with conscious awareness, and mother and father are their universe, and how mommy treats herself is a direct correlation to how they are going to learn to treat themselves. So we have to be that divine example. And I'm not saying work out all the time. I'm saying get back into your body, get back into loving your body, honoring your body and what you've been through, and get rid of this idea that you're supposed to bounce back. It's been, my second daughter was born in October, and she is now 14 months old. And I've just now started to feel like, okay, I can get back in the gym, but maybe once or twice a week. I'm doing yoga at home. I play with my kids. I do gentle core workouts and simple things, because as women, we don't actually need to go hardcore in the gym. And as a mother, when you're constantly drained, either breastfeeding, literally, or, being the caregiver and nurturer of the emotional environment in the home, that is our burden and our best gift at the same time. And that's why they say happy wife, happy life, but it's really nurtured mama nurtures others. You know what I mean? As opposed to my mother, who was very nurturing, but she would give and give and give from an empty cup. And then she would be very resentful at us and the world around her and feel very alone and isolated. And motherhood can do that to you, especially if you don't have a village, if you don't have friends, which we don't have a village. We don't have anyone who lives here where we are that we would trust to watch our children, or, anybody we would trust to take care of me postpartum or any of that. So it was really just on us. And that was hard too. But your body needs to be honored for what it's been through, for what it's been able to do. It is miraculous. It is a gift. And if you're watching this and you've chosen not to have kids, don't take what I'm about to say personally, but it is the most magical expression of femininity that exists. That's just it. You are a goddess of creation, and you have brought forth this being that is your greatest teacher. And it's amazing. Also your greatest healer. It's there's nothing like it that a woman can do. And I know that there's probably people who are like, well, I don't want to have kids. That's fine. You don't have to have kids. I think you might change your mind if you're young and you change your mind later in life. Because up until I was about 32, I wasn't having kids. I wasn't getting married. And then I met my husband. And boy, was that a rude awakening. I was like, wait, I want kids, but I want them with you. So, we teach women that you either want kids or you don't want kids. It's situational. It should be, do you want kids with that person that you're with? Can you imagine yourself being in the foxhole? The hardest phases of a marriage are when you have a new child. I would argue that. I had a friend of mine say after we had our first daughter that there is no challenge like a new baby to a relationship, to a marriage. And it's so true because you go from being each other's world to having this creature, this beautiful being, this beautiful human that you brought earthside, and the dynamic is completely changed. Astrologically speaking, you have a new energy force, a new cosmic blueprint that now interchanges and interplays with your energies. And then you have to figure out, okay, well, what the hell does all this mean? And that's why alchemistic astrology and herbalism has been so helpful in our life because, it's been easier with our second because we could just go, where's the moon? What's going on? And we would see that it's digestive. I'm like, okay, I got this, or whatever the emotion was that was being influenced based on the cosmic energies. We'd be like, okay, so this is the remedy. Or sometimes we would just be like, okay, so we just need to wait it out. We need to create a soft, gentle space. Let's turn some chill music on. Let's create that environment. Let's turn on the humidifier, the aromatherapy and all that stuff. Like I have, where'd it go? This one I just sniff sometimes. The medicine. That's just lavender. And thyme mixed together and rosemary. And there's a couple others. It's just, it's amazing. And regulating yourself. You have to learn to do that too. Otherwise, motherhood can be very hard. Parenthood can be very hard. This one might piss some people off, but you must vaccinate your child. You must jabby jab your child. So I think when it comes to this, there is this idea that all of the jabs have been thoroughly tested and they know that it's incredibly safe because our medical system, why would they want to poison us? And I completely understand that. The same ideas and belief systems are applied across the board with the government. And we think that people who have doctorates and PhDs and, they all work ethically. Unfortunately, there's a big agenda. And what we need to know about the jabby jabs is they are the biggest moneymaker in the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry subsidizes and pays for medical schools. They pay for a ton of stuff. And there's incentives for each pediatrician to jabby jab on a schedule your child. In Japan, no child is immunized, given any jabby jabs before the age of 2. And they do that because the immune system needs to develop on its own. And then it's a choice. And I think that that's a very smart thing because they have the lowest infant mortality rate in the world as a result. And there are other countries that follow suit or only do certain jabby jabs before a certain age. We have gone from 1989, I believe it was, or 1998, one of the two. I think it was 89. We went from a very small amount of jabby jabs, immunizations, nailed it, to an excessive amount that we are giving children. And I know that there's a lot of people that will say that there is no connection between jabby jabs and autism or developmental issues. They have thoroughly tested 2 of the jabby jabs in regards to that correlation. That's a fact. And there are many people who are told there's no correlation whatsoever. That's ridiculous. That's bunk. And the agenda is to demean and belittle and deface anyone or slander anyone who tries to state otherwise, because it's money. It's money. RFK has been demonized as somebody who is anti-medicine and anti-jabs. And he's clarified multiple times that he is not anti-jabs. He is anti-unsafe jabs. We have ingredients in these immunizations that don't belong in the human body whatsoever. That's an argument that no one can refute. That's the funny thing. You can say, why are we putting heavy metals into these? Why are we putting aborted fetal cells into these? And how it also really boggles the mind is that they have to create these diseases in another environment in order to create the entire formulation of the jab. And then they have to inject that into your child. So they're creating this disease, but sometimes they're using animal cells to do so. Sometimes they're using, it's a lot of work to inject your child with something that they most likely won't have a problem with, specifically in the early stages of development. Why do we have to give these jabs on the same day they are born? Why? Especially when it's the hepatitis B jab. That can only be experienced, that you can only get that through drug transmission, using, like, practicing with needles, sharing needles, or through sexually transmitted exchange. A baby's not going to do that. Why do we need to do that? So I have chosen not to jab my children. And I'm not saying what you should do. I am saying you have to look at the ingredients and you have to question everything they give you and say that it's good for your child. You have to, because there is no legal protection when it comes to immunizations, when it comes to jabby jabs. You cannot sue, especially with the COVID ones. You cannot sue. You cannot say, I took my daughter or my child to the pediatrician and they said that we had to do these, and so they got their shots, and then the next day they were different. There are so many stories out there like that. There are so many stories out there. And it's not just the jabs that are increasing disease and developmental issues in our modern society, and diabetes within children. There are so many factors, but it's excessive what we're doing to children through immunizations. And when you follow the money, the aha moment steps you outside of this preconceived notion that, well, my doctor said, well, my pediatrician said. Your pediatrician is getting money to literally keep your child on a schedule. Your pediatrician is getting money, even your doctor's getting money to diagnose you as something, because then they can get paid from the drug companies. This is a problem, and we need to do something about it. And I'm hoping RFK will, because there needs to be a separation between these companies. You know, we need to hold our pharmaceutical industry to a much higher standard. If they're making billions, trillions of dollars, they should be putting that money back into the quality of their product. That's all I'm going to say. I could say so much more. But I will say this as well. in terms of immunizations, I've had many clients and friends tell me that they had to leave their pediatrician, or their pediatrician fired them because they would not stick to a schedule. Now you know why. Now you know why your pediatrician fired you or pressured you or bullied you. It's because they're getting paid. Cheddar cheese, y'all. That's what it's about. Okay. The next lie we're told. Co-sleeping is unsafe. What? I remember hearing from a lot of people, and even videos online, even videos on YouTube and content. People are afraid because they are told that the possibility of SIDS or sudden infant death, or there's all these tragic stories of children dying as a result of co-sleeping. What they will not tell you is that most of those are situationally based. And what I mean by that is the mother or the parent was on pharmaceuticals, on drugs, drunk, or just didn't know how to do safe co-sleeping. And in the early days, it is very important with newborns and small babies to make sure to practice safe co-sleeping. There's a big difference between, like, when you get in a car and you travel, you're going to feel a lot safer with the right car seat and the right seat belt, and then you can travel safely. It's very similar in terms of co-sleeping. You need to have things in place. I know that we bought a crib because I thought we were going to have a crib. Baby has to sleep in a crib or a bassinet. Baby's going to be fed by me in bed, and then we'll put them in the bassinet so they're safe. Well, baby doesn't want to sleep in no bassinet. Baby doesn't know baby is separate from mommy. Baby has been in mommy's womb for 9 months, depending upon how long they were in there. But on average, 9 months. Baby comes out into the world from this darkened, warm, wet, floaty experience, this ethereal, magical experience. And then, depending upon where they're born, whether if it's in the hospital, it's bright lights and people putting their hands all over you and maybe screaming as well. Or it's a darkened room and they're held and they go right to mommy's chest, and then they find mommy's nipple, but they can't see yet except enough to see the darkness of her nipple. That's why you get like black ass nipples in the areola after you have a baby, especially towards the end of pregnancy. And I was just like, what the hell is this about? Oh my God. And now you know. It's because we were made perfect. And it's really unfortunate because there is this, you have to put them in the crib. They'll learn to self-soothe, give them a binky, swaddle them. They're freaking brand new beings. We are the only species whose young isn't supposed to be separate from us. You know, a baby horse will be born and start to walk right away. They just come out covered in stuff and they can walk. Our babies are incredibly dependent. I mean, that's the word, but it's a fair word because they're freaking babies. They can't even hold up their head. They are meant to be held and kept on you and warm. They have been hearing your heartbeat for 9 months. That has been their world, their universe, their rhythm. If you take them out of their rhythm, this is how we become out of tune as human beings. And so many people have said, oh, well, baby will learn to self-soothe, baby will adjust. Baby will adjust, but only, and I'm sorry if you mamas didn't do this, don't feel bad because the choices have been made, but this is for mothers who are wondering what to do in the future. Baby goes through trauma when they are separate. They don't self-soothe. They learn to adjust to what they are given. If baby cries and no one comes, baby learns they're on their own. And that is how we imprint these beliefs within these children. And this is how trauma starts. It starts right away. So I'm not saying if your baby's crying, for a minute, that's trauma. But if your baby cries and you do the cry it out method, that is trauma. That's what that baby is experiencing. And, there's people who are like, oh, let them cry. If you don't let them cry, they'll never learn. I'm like, my baby cries for 5 seconds and I'm freaking there. I will be across the house. And even before she's cried, if she's moving, if I know she's awake, I am running or I'm sending Logan in there. Like there's no reason for my baby to cry unless she's having an emotional experience, in which case it's like, okay, I understand it's frustrating that mommy took your toy, but this is a bag of cereal. We don't have cereal. It was a box of pasta earlier. It was orzo. And she was shaking it and she was so happy. And then I was like, okay, mommy has to take that, baby. That's not a toy. And she got so upset. And I picked her up. I held her and I showed her. I was like, baby, this is a box of pasta. Okay, this is our food. This isn't a toy. And it was so cute because she was looking at it and she was like, I see what you're saying. Okay. I was like, but we have so many other toys. Why don't you go find another toy? And I put her down and she just went and did her thing. It was amazing because babies are so freaking intelligent. We just don't give them credit. They are constantly in communication with us. And when a baby cries, the communication is, do something. I'm wet. I'm uncomfortable. I need to be burped. I need to be held. I'm lonely. And you cannot spoil a baby with affection. With Isla, our first baby, I did have the bassinet and she slept in it a little bit. And we did have the crib, but eventually the crib was right next to the bed and she was only sleeping in there for a couple hours by herself before we came to bed. And then my husband, he is so funny because people think they know him. They think that he's like this tough dude, but it was his idea to co-sleep. It was his idea because he had built the crib and he had done everything that I asked because we ran into somebody when we were living in California and about to move cross country and they had a new baby and we were just like, oh, it's awesome. How are you guys doing? Any advice? Because we were super pregnant. And they said, yes. And they actually had 2 kids. They had a 4-year-old and a new baby. And they're like, yes, don't let the baby sleep with you. And Logan and I were like, oh, and I had already decided at that time the baby was going to go in her own room by 6 months. And baby was, it's funny what you think when you're pregnant before that baby's here, before you're an actual mother. And baby is not going to sleep in bed with us because that woman just confirmed my fear that if baby sleeps in bed with you, they're never going to want to leave. It's freaking true. But it is amazing to co-sleep with your children. And if you have the kind of marriage where it's okay for you guys not to have sex all the time or ever in the beginning, because that's how it works. When you co-sleep with your babies and you have a newborn baby, you don't have time for the boom, boom, boom because, oh, we have this toddler that's going to stay up while the baby's asleep. So okay. And Logan and I talked about it early on and he was just like, I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. I was like, yeah, I'm not worried. We still flirt. We still talk about it all the time. We make out, we dance. But it's like, this is such a short phase in our marriage and we intend to be together forever, which that word scares the shit out of Logan, but I love using it. But it's like, this is a blip in terms of that aspect of our relationship. We've never had a problem with being with each other. So there's no insecurity there. So if you have that openness with your partner to be like, we might not be able to have sons, but we're going to cuddle with our children. They are going to know they are safe. They're going to be bonded and connected to us, and we will be their safe space. If there's anywhere in this world that they are safe, it is with mommy and daddy. And when we were in Florida, Sure enough, I was executing the plan. Okay, we've got the crib in the other room, and he's like, "Honey, put the crib in our room." And I put the crib in our room, and he's like, "Honey, bring the baby to bed. You don't have to rock her and put her back into her bed," because Isla was not interested in sleeping by herself. She did not like being put down, and I didn't understand it because people said, "Oh, baby needs to go to sleep this time," and all the wake windows and all this other stuff. And baby needs to sleep in the crib and be safe, and no blankets and no stuffed animals, nothing, just them. And you can swaddle them though. You can forcibly keep them in one position, which is totally great. And then one day he was like, "Just bring her to bed. Just let her sleep with us. I don't care. I would much rather her be in bed with us." And I was like, okay. And when he gave me that permission, I was like, oh, this feels right. This is what feels right to me. If it feels right to you to have your baby in a crib, do what feels right to you. If your baby cries and seems very unhappy in that crib, do what feels right in that moment. If it feels right to keep them there, that's you. That's you, Mom. But again, most women, most mothers will have that instinct. There's a biological instinct to pick up your child, to take care of that child. And within the first year, your brain actually formulates itself to focus solely on the survival and needs of that child. That is why there's mom brain. And although I feel much smarter now than I did for 12 months, but you literally can't focus much on anything else. That's why it's so hard to go back to work. It's so hard. And thankfully, working from home gave me the flexibility, and people were asking me for classes and asking me for this and that they missed me. And I was like, I don't have it in me right now. And then sure enough, she turned 1 year old. And I also knew that with her Saturn degree being at 1, I was like, that's mommy going back to work. And it won't be a huge difference, but she's going to feel it. And she did. But it also meant her turn to grow up a little bit, which is what she wants. She's the one who's like, okay, hold my hand for a second. And then she yanks it away as soon as she's set. And I'm just like, okay, I love it. All right, girl, I'm here. I'm here if you need me. And she's a firecracker. So sleep with your baby. There are plenty of safe sleep practices for co-sleeping. Feeding schedules and sleeping schedules. We kind of talked about this in the last one, but you do not need to keep your baby on a schedule. You don't. Because here's the thing. Their circadian rhythm isn't developed until you create it for them. So I would not recommend blackout curtains. Curtains that can darken the room, but a baby should be able to sleep in the sunlight. You know what I mean? The benefits of the sun, the benefits of light, so that they can regulate their circadian rhythm so they don't think it's dark all the time when they sleep. It's not natural. But I did it with my first, and as a result, she cannot sleep in a room that is not dark. So we always have to make sure the lights are off. And she can't really nap unless it's in the car. And then we have their little shades that go up, and she even asks for it. She's like, "Mommy, too bright." But I drove myself crazy trying to put her to bed or put her down for a nap a certain number of times a day, a certain time a day. And she would just be like, "Fuck you, I'm not sleeping. I don't know what you're doing. I don't want to sleep. I'm tired, but I'm not going to sleep." And I would worry about her brain development, and I would worry about all these stipulations that people say you have to follow. There's what are they called? Sleep coaches for children. And they teach you the perfect schedule to put your babies on. I'm going to tell you right now, listen to me. Babies don't give up about schedules. By all means, when it comes to bedtime, having a set bedtime or a time frame for bed that's specific, like for us, it's between 7 and 8 o'clock is what we try for. There have been times where Isla will stay up a little bit later and I will put Ava to bed, or Ava's not going to sleep. So we have to slow things down and smooth things down depending upon where the moon is. We've rarely gone to bed past 9. And because Ava, your baby will tell you when they want to go to bed. Logan is not as good at sensing that, because when they're wired, he thinks that means they don't want to go to sleep. I'm like, no, they're very tired. They're overtired and they're acting out, and it's a tire fire. So we need to get them to bed. And that's been an adjustment for my husband, because he just likes to work at night a little bit, and the kids will play right next to him, and it's cute. But once it starts being a hot mess, I'm like, okay, let's brush our teeth, and let's go to bed. And we all sleep together. So everyone goes to bed a lot easier lately, because Ava's been teething really bad. I get up and I walk with her and rock her, and then we fall asleep on the couch, and then we go to bed. But, it's so much easier. Going back to the co-sleeping, one other fact, it's so much easier to sleep when you co-sleep. It's so much easier. You don't have to get up. You don't even have to get out of the bed to change the diaper, unless it's a poopy diaper. But, but with feeding and schedules and all of that, do yourself a favor, unless you need it for your own self, because every mother's different. Some mothers are like, oh, no, I need my schedules. But understand that baby is not you. That baby may not want a schedule. Ava needs more of a schedule. She's more on a schedule naturally. I've noticed that she prefers to take a nap between this hour and this hour, and she likes to take a long nap. And she doesn't want to take 2 naps. If she takes 2 naps, or she won't take 2 naps. And that's, they would say, oh, she's a 1-year-old. She should be taking at least 2 naps, and she needs to go to bed at this time. And you need to make sure she's feeding at this time. And how often is she breastfeeding? And don't worry about it. It's working. She's great. She's got chubby ass thighs. She's walking. She's running. I mean, she's amazing. And we can stress so much as mothers, thinking that we're not enough and that we have to do more, and we put more on our plate as a result, and we make things harder as a result. And society has nurtured that in a negative way. Oh yeah, you need more to think about. Well, here's this fact or this statistic that we've either created from bought for science, which happens a lot, or it's happened to a small group and now we're applying it to the whole. That happens a lot too. Because you'll have people be like, oh, that wasn't my experience. And that's what matters. What's your experience? What feels right to you? Schedules, I say do what feels right, but make sure it's working for the baby. And that can be hard for people who have to keep a schedule. So forgive yourself and forgive your baby if they don't want to stay on a schedule. Yeah, life will be easier if you don't fixate on, oh, they can't nap after this time, because then the whole schedule will be messed up. Flow a bit more, because you're going to teach your children how to flow within their life as well. Neuroticism is learned behavior. So if we're neurotic, which I was in the beginning, about when they sleep and what they eat and what they do and how they poop and blah, 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 they're going to learn that and apply it in their lives. So I don't want my babies to do that. And it's also important for our kids to know that we are not perfect. Mommy and daddy try our hardest, but there are going to be times where we're going to disappoint you and we're not going to be our best self. And in those moments, I need to regulate. I need to take a breath. I've taught my girls to breathe. I've taught my girls to do yoga. And not because I said, okay, everybody, we're going to do yoga now. Let's everyone breathe in and out. No, it's because I was doing it. It's because I did it. And the girls were like, what are we doing? Huh? Because I just want to be wherever I am. It doesn't matter if I'm pooping or if I'm showering. They're just like, what you doing? Huh? What's going on? And my 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old is amazing. I was going to the bathroom earlier and she came trotting in and she just stares at me and she's just like, hi, mama. I was like, hi, honey. She's like, hug. And I was like, yeah, of course I'll give you a hug. I'm just on the toilet. I don't care. I've literally held my babies while pooping or peeing. It's no big deal. And I love that. I love that. However, daddy gets to close the door and lock it. And she'll be at the door if he takes too long and be like, Daddy, open up. He's like, I'm wiping. I'll be out in a minute. And as soon as he finishes wiping and he's got his pants up, he opens the door and she's like, hi. So there's no like real reason. They just want to be with you. They are attached. They do not know that they are separate in this world. And that's probably another reason why they don't want to stick to a schedule, because it's the separation from you. And that's uncomfortable for a baby or a child. Milestones. The lies of the milestones. Your baby should fit in this box, by this box. And if they don't fit in this box, something's wrong with them. And you need to make sure your baby's in this percentile and blah, 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 blah. Our housekeeper was here a couple weeks ago and she asked me, because Ava's huge, and she was like, do you know what percentile she's in? And I was like, I have no clue. I have no clue, and I really don't care. And I said it, I made sure to say, like, it's not that I don't care in the sense that, you know, it doesn't, I'm not trying to demean your question. I understand why you're asking, but I think it's immaterial. As long as there isn't any red flags, then I wouldn't worry about it. And it's so common with new parents, even with a new baby, and you've had a couple kids, because we will think, okay, well, this is how they're supposed to be progressing. And if they're not progressing, like I had a client message me about her daughter. She's 1 and she's like 8 months and she's not feeding herself. And I'm thinking back to my first baby, who wasn't interested in food at all except booby until about 1 years old, versus my last baby, who at 2 months was literally taking things out of my hands, and like she couldn't feed herself yet, but she was like trying. So we started giving her a little bit of food, and they say, don't feed your baby real food before the age of bull. It wasn't up to me. She had decided she was ready to eat food, and I would give her a plate and just give her a tiny bit of something, or just like some, like mashed carrots or bananas or something like that. And she wanted to. It was a hot mess. But, you know, what I would say to my client is, your baby probably isn't that interested in feeding themselves in food. You know, there are ways that you can get them more interested. Like they have fruit feeders and they have other things. You just want to make sure that it's not plastic. And, you know, things that you can cut food into cute shapes and that kind of stuff and make it a bit more fun for them, more interactive. But there are some babies like my first who just doesn't care about food yet, because mommy's their source. And also everything your child does, just like everything you do that stands out, is a signal of something. So if your child's not hungry one day, if your child's not sleeping one day, if your child's crying a lot, there's no such thing as a fussy baby. Just like there's no such thing as a fussy, well, there are some divas, and I've worked for a few, but a baby or a child doesn't know how to communicate their needs on a intellectual or a emotionally mature way. Usually there are exceptions, and we're teaching my daughter that, and it's really interesting because she'll say things like, my tummy hurts, and she'll be like, I'm very sick, and I'll be like, honey, do you not feel well, or are you hungry? And we did it earlier today, and she's like, oh, I'm hungry, I want food. And I was like, okay, well, let's get you some food then. And she's like, okay. And that's teaching her how to communicate her needs. And we've always told her, don't be afraid to tell us you need something, honey. You know, whatever you need, your needs will always be met. Sometimes it just takes us longer than 3 seconds, because she'll just say the same thing over and over and over and over again until she gets it. It's an effective strategy, but it can be annoying sometimes. And Logan and I are like, we're coming. We're doing it. I'm literally doing it right now. Do you see mommy? Do you see me doing it? And she's like, wah, 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 wah. And, somebody else, a pediatrician might say, oh, well, there might be something cognitive going on, or, something's not right. My dog just growled. What's going on, baby? What's your problem? What's the matter, honey? Where are you? Where are you? Oh, he wants to go out. I'm going to let him out real quick. Ugh, my firstborn. Okay, hold on. Hang on, bud. I'm coming. Go ahead. Go ahead. Love you. All right, I'm coming back. Yeah, I mean, they might say that, oh, well, the repeating, that might be concerning, or, oh, she shouldn't do that, or, as a parent, you should make sure to stop that. And I want you to do yourself a favor and follow my lead. What other parents or other people think I should do with my child is none of my business. Because you will find people telling you exactly what you should do all the way through motherhood. It's amazing, especially while pregnant. It's really funny how many people think that it's totally okay to tell a pregnant mother who's most likely already stressed out or tired or depleted or, scared or, God knows what's going on. And then I had people come up to me and be like, oh, well, you should do this. And, oh, you should do this. And when I meet pregnant mamas, I just say, how you doing, mama? How's it going? And if they say that they have, hip problems, or if they say they have any issues and I have some wisdom to share with them, I'll be like, oh, you could do this and that'll help you feel better. Also, this is a nutritive herb that's really beneficial. And at the same time, it's like, first and foremost, take care of your mind, body, and spirit. Just anybody who tells you what you should do isn't the person that you want in your bubble. And make sure to create that bubble. Make it strong. I just did a class on psychic security, and it's also a lot about boundaries, which as a mother, as a parent, you have to have them. You have to have them. Otherwise, people will be pulling you energetically in so many different directions, and it'll be hard for you to be the person that you want to be for your child. It'll be hard for you to be that parent that they deserve. And that's the goal, is not to please anyone else or to appease anyone's beliefs, perspectives. If you have a mother-in-law or a parent who's like, oh, well, this is what we did when you were young and it worked fine and you grew up fine. Like, that's the worst cop-out in terms of what they think I should do. Like, I don't care what you did for me. I know my childhood. And thankfully, my father hasn't done that. But I did have my mother-in-law, who is very well-meaning, but she said, be careful, you hold that baby all the time, you're going to spoil it. And I was like, you can't spoil a child with love. No child can ever be spoiled with love. That's not a thing. That's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. Like, when you feel uncertain about this world, can you be comforted too much? I don't think so. I think so. But like, developmental timelines can be really stressful for parents. And I remember years ago, before I ever had kids, a friend of mine who had kids first, she said that her son wasn't speaking very much. And she talked to me about it because she got very stressed talking to other parents. And she said that, he just doesn't talk that much. And I know he's smart. And we're thinking about getting him tested for, developmental issues. And I was like, you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I think that his energy is more internal or ethereal, and he doesn't necessarily know how to communicate with words yet. And my daughter has that a little bit from time to time. And sometimes when she talks, she'll just do this. She'll be like, oh, mommy, na, 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 or like it's gibberish. And instead of being like, oh, no, what's wrong? Why isn't she saying the whole sentence? It's not a big deal because we know her energy, because we can look at her chart. When I was a little kid, I was traumatized at age 2 and didn't talk to anyone else but my sister until I was about 5 or 6. So they would have said, oh, developmentally, she's got problems, and oh, she's got this, and and they scared my parents into so many things. And I would talk to my sister. And because of that, my parents stood up to the doctors and they're like, no, I don't think it's that big a deal. She communicates with her sister. And at times I wouldn't even communicate with my sister. My sister would just know what I wanted to say because we had this amazing connection. And she was also, that was her energy, was to tell people what was correct. and oh no, Ashley doesn't like that. Ashley wants a hot dog and she wants it cut like this. And I'm like, because I didn't feel very safe communicating. And, my Mercury is in Pisces and I can't remember what house it's in or how it's aspected, but there's so much to the individual energy of a human being that cannot be explained by a system that does not view us as elemental beings, as energy beings. They don't even view that we are an electrical being. And we 100% are, scientifically speaking. They've charted it. We have a human biosphere, an energetic frequency that can be measured 6 feet all around you. So it's not just communicating with people with words. We're constantly in communication with this universe, with ourselves, and with others, whether we're speaking or not. So I learned very early on to let my daughter unfold into this world without pressure to be something she's not. Because I think one of the biggest problems kids have developmentally into who they're supposed to be, which is who they are authentically, is the pressure to adhere to expectation. And going into doctor's offices and hearing that they're not meeting expectations, that's the worst thing you can tell a child. Well, I mean, there's worse things, but that's a really awful thing to tell a child when all they want to do is be. That's what a child wants to do, is be, especially a toddler, especially a toddler. And, when it comes to your sovereignty, your child, do your own research and not just in books, but also pray, also meditate, also journal. Take what you learned from your own childhood and your own mother and understand that you don't have to do it the same way. You have permission to be authentically the mother that you want to be. And that takes some time to also discover. So, don't judge yourself for not knowing what you know now. Don't judge yourself for the decisions that you made along the way that you wish you wouldn't have done. You do what you can with what you have and what you know. And all we can do as mothers is to just take the information in, educate ourselves, and apply it to the future so that we can do better. But doesn't mean that you did anything bad. You did the best you could with a system that doesn't give power to mothers, that doesn't give us any sense of control. For many people, they get bullied into making these decisions or bullied into thinking a certain way, conditioned by society and social media. And, oh, this woman has it all together and she, worked out every day and now her body's tight and, oh, she's so fit and she's always lifting weights and she's eating healthy and her baby looks perfect. None of that shit is real. There is no one in this world, no mother, no person who is all together all the time, because it would be exhausting. It would be so exhausting. And the beauty of being a mother, another beautiful thing I've noticed is your child does not expect you to have it all together. They expect you to just love them and to address their needs as they come. Their food, their safety, their housing, their connection to you and this world, that's the things that they need. And also permission for them to be different, to be weird. The other day, my daughter did something so weird and I was like, what's wrong with you? And I said, I'm so sorry, honey. I don't mean that. There's nothing wrong with you. Because that's what my family said to me. I was the kind of kid that I would like run my head into things because I wanted to be a bull and I thought it was funny, and I would laugh my ass off and roll around on the ground, and my parents just be like, okay, something's wrong with this child. And, yeah, there was something wrong with me. I was a weirdo. I still am a weirdo. I'm more of that weirdo now than ever because I just don't care anymore. I don't care what other people think. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm so happy being me. And it's really easy to wade through the people that I don't want in my life to just be me, because right away, they'll let me know if they want to be my friend. I met a mom a while ago, and she was really interested in me being an herbalist. And she was like, oh, we should exchange information. I'm just starting with a holistic path as well, and I'm interested in nutrition. And I was like, that's awesome. I love it. I mean, my herbalism is also very spiritual, and I get witchy with it. And I do rituals, and my daughter does magic. And, I just want you to know that I'm different. And if you can hang with that, then that's awesome. And she's like, oh, well, we are Christian. I was like, that's great. That's no problem with me. And she's like, okay, yeah, give me your info. And I just felt like I'm never hearing from this woman again. And I didn't. Because there's these preconceived notions that, beliefs separate you, and they don't have to. They 100% don't have to. If you have boundaries with your beliefs and think, this is who I am, you don't have to be me. No one else is going to be me. But if we can just hang with who we are and be authentic, there's no problem. And there's a lot of people who are not comfortable with who they are, and they use labels to describe who they are rather than what they do. And I don't mean professionally. I just mean what they're interested in. And it's been so freeing to be a mother. And I lost a lot of friendships because there were some people who were just not patient with me early on. I couldn't call them. I couldn't get on FaceTime. And I had one friend that really was upset with me that I wouldn't FaceTime her. I was like, I'm holding my baby. She's napping. And I'm never on the phone. The only time I'm ever on the phone is if I have to call a bank or, pay a bill. Otherwise, I am not on the phone. And I know that phase of life won't be long. I know one day I'll be able to go like, hey, how are you? But that friendship was contingent upon her having my full attention. And she was not okay with me not giving it to her. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can't be the friend that you want me to be then. I guess I wish you well. And she was just like, wait, what? I was like, I mean, we can be friends in the way that I can be a friend right now, but I have a child, and I don't want to rub that in your face or make you feel bad, but that's just me now. And so you're either cool with that or it's going to be a problem. And if it's going to be a problem, it's not going to be a problem for me because I'm not going to hang around. I protect my energy and my family above all things. That's what's important to me. I don't watch scary movies. I don't read depressing things. We had somebody spreading lies and bullying about us, and I really had to practice some psychic security and boundaries. And as a result, we've created more of an understanding with our community, and we created our school, which has just been so wonderful. And it's okay to make your life the way that it feels the most comfortable for you. So mamas, future mamas, people who have had kids a long time ago and are just reflecting on their early mother journey, I give you this gift of simply being you and knowing that you were chosen by that child and that nothing you did was wrong. It was just what you thought was right in the moment. And the beauty of this journey is, and I know I've said that a lot, the beauty of this journey, there is so much beauty in motherhood. But the best thing is that this is never over. You will always have that energetic connection to your baby, even in death. My mother is still very much my mother, and I connect with her, I communicate with her, and I feel her protecting my children and helping me protect my peace in a way that she never knew how. And that's how we break cycles, and that's how we change lives, is by being the person we want to be, authenticity in motherhood is the key to happiness and is the key to imbuing our children with that same power so that they can represent that in their own motherhood journey. And then we can just break all the cycles and make this world a better place, which is what it's all about, yo. So that is what I have for you guys today in terms of the lies and the truth of motherhood that I've experienced, that I've researched, that I truly believe in. If you were triggered by anything in this podcast, comment down below. If you were reflecting on anything in this podcast or have any thoughts, I would love to connect with you. And I would love this to be a space where we can just talk about motherhood. And if someone posts something and you don't agree with it, you don't have to share that you don't agree with it. You can just say, oh, I did this. And we can just keep the conversation going and not have to be these people that think that our experience of motherhood is the correct experience because it was correct for us. That's not a thing. So mamas, mother yourself first and foremost, nurture yourself so that you can nurture others and not give from an empty cup. I love you all. Thank you for listening. If you're interested in learning more, alchemystic herbalism, or just learning astrology and applying that to your motherhood journey, which is priceless, you can join our School Mystic Circle. Link is down below. And if you're going through your motherhood journey and you're looking for a way to feel a bit more supported and mothered and you don't have a village, I love cacao for that. It has been amazing. I actually drank it right before this podcast. And that's down below as well. The medicine that I use for that, because it also helps you replenish your magnesium. If you're breastfeeding, it's wonderful. There are just so many benefits to cacao in any phase of motherhood, of womanhood. My husband drinks it as well. My children drink it just a little bit, but not too much. And that's a medicine that I think that every mother needs. I think it's a heart opener. It keeps us softened and it keeps us the nurturer that we want to be while feeling nurtured simultaneously. So, anything else? Nope. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in Circle if you're a student. If not, comment down below. And thank you for connecting with me. And in this motherhood journey, just flow. Flow in what feels right for you. Vibe higher.